I don't care if it was a misunderstanding. You're not a good fit here anymore, Mr. Grant said coldly, without even looking up from his laptop. The entire office had gone quiet. Eyes peered over cubicle walls trying to catch the unfolding, seen like it was some cruel midday drama. Priya stood frozen, her hands clutching the notebook she'd brought in to discuss her latest campaign results. Her voice shook. Sir, I didn't say anything disrespectful, I only suggested. Suggested? He scoffed, slamming his laptop shut. He finally looked up, eyes narrowing. You questioned my decision in front of the board. That's what you did. He stood slowly, towering over her. You think just because you've got a few marketing certificates and a diverse background you know better than me? The air thickened. Someone coughed awkwardly. Another person turned away, pretending to be busy with emails. No one dared intervene. Priya's throat tightened, her chest burning with shame. I just thought the campaign could do better with... Save it. He cut her off. You're done here. He reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a yellow envelope and flung it toward her like she was nothing. It hit the floor at her feet. Your severance package. You'll find everything in there. It has already deactivated your access. Her ears rang. She had worked weekends, stayed late, won the company its highest performing campaign last quarter, and now she was being thrown out like trash in front of everyone. Security appeared at the door, 2 guards who looked just as uncomfortable as the others. One of them glanced at her apologetically. The other wouldn't meet her eyes. Mr. Grant smiled with cruel satisfaction. Consider this a learning experience. Know your place next time. Priya didn't cry. She picked up the envelope, turned without a word and walked out with as much dignity as she could manage. But inside she was crumbling. The elevator doors closed behind her, and her knees gave out the second she was alone. Her back slid down the wall, and she pressed a hand to her mouth to muffle the sob. She had done everything right, worked twice as hard, stayed quiet when others took credit, smiled through comments that stung, and still, none of it was enough. Outside, the sun glared down like nothing had happened. She stood at the corner of 7th and Main, gripping that envelope like it was the last piece of her worth. Cars passed, people laughed, life moved on. Her phone buzzed, a text from her roommate. Did you seriously get fired? I heard from someone at HR. What did you do? No question about whether she was okay, just gossip. Her stomach turned. Another buzz. A LinkedIn notification. Mr. Grant had posted a smug update about maintaining company integrity and high leadership standards. The comments were full of praise. She wanted to scream. Instead, she walked. No direction, just forward. Her heels blistered her feet, but she didn't stop. She couldn't go home. She couldn't face the stares or questions. She didn't even have enough in her account to afford rent this month. Her savings had gone to cover her mother's hospital bills last winter. When she finally stopped, it was at a park bench near the old library downtown. She sat in silence watching children run around carefree and laughing. Her own laughter felt like a memory from another life. She opened the envelope, scanning the paperwork. 2 weeks' pay. That was it. No letter of reference. No acknowledgement of her achievements. Just 2 weeks in silence. A light breeze brushed her hair from her face. She stared straight ahead, unblinking. That man had humiliated her. Not just fired her, but made an example out of her. As if she had no value. As if she was just a mistake that had slipped through the cracks. He didn't know who she really was, what she had survived, what she carried inside. Her eyes narrowed, the pain hardening into something else. Not rage, not yet, but resolve. He would regret underestimating her, not with loud threats or angry posts, but with silence, with patience, with power. She stood again, slower this time, straighter. She walked with purpose even if she didn't know the plan yet. He had taken everything from her, but that meant she had nothing left to lose. And that kind of person, that's the one you should be afraid of. Priya moved through the days like a shadow of herself. The humiliation from the office never left her. It clung to her skin like dust. The worst part wasn't just the firing, it was how quickly the world moved on, how people she thought were friends fell silent. No messages, no calls, just echoes. The tiny studio apartment she shared with a roommate felt colder than ever. Rent was due in 2 weeks and she had nothing. No backup job, no family in the city. Her mother lived miles away, sick and too proud to ask for help, and Priya had been her only support. Now she couldn't even afford her next meal. She tried. God, she tried. She polished her resume, applied to 20 jobs a day. But every time she reached the final round, the offer slipped through her fingers. Some said she wasn't a cultural fit. Others didn't bother replying at all. She knew what it meant, even if no one said it. Then came the night her roommate knocked on her door, avoiding eye contact. Sorry, Priya. My cousin needs a place to stay and I can't cover your half anymore. That was code for, you need to leave. She spent the next week couch hopping. A few friends offered one-night stays, but the warmth always faded. People grew uncomfortable with her silence, her eyes that no longer sparkled. Eventually, she stopped asking. For a while, the back booth of a 24-hour diner became her haven. A kind waitress named Carla would let her sit with a free coffee refill if the manager wasn't around. Priya would nurse the warm cup for hours, pretending to scroll through job boards even though her phone bill hadn't been paid. She'd sleep at the shelter downtown some nights. Other times, on park benches, her coat pulled tightly around her, pretending she wasn't scared. She felt invisible. But every night when the city slept and the streets were quiet, she read. A tattered old business book from the free library bin became her companion. Then another, and another. She started to understand how things worked. Real business, strategy, negotiation, leadership, not just the sugar-coated office politics she once played into. And she remembered her father's voice, soft but firm in her childhood. They'll always see what they want to see, Betty. So let them underestimate you. Let them laugh. Then build so strong they'll choke on it. He had passed when she was 12. But now, those words became her anchor. One evening, as she sat outside a library waiting for it to open, a man in a tailored coat dropped a notebook from his briefcase. She picked it up and returned it. You're well spoken, he said. You work in marketing? Used to, she replied, brushing the dirt off her coat. Something in her tone made him pause. He handed her a card. Come by my office next week. I need someone who knows branding. Real branding, not fluff. It wasn't a job offer, just a maybe. But for someone who had lost everything, maybe was enough. She bought a $2 blazer from a thrift store, cleaned it, and showed up. The office was small, just 3 people, but it was real. And after one meeting, he let her work part-time, remote, on trial. For the first time in months, she felt useful. She didn't post online, didn't try to show the world she was okay. Instead, she studied. She worked quietly. She started networking under a fake LinkedIn profile. No photo, no gender, no hints. Just results. And slowly, she started attracting attention. One project turned into 2. A small business wanted branding, then a startup, then a politician's campaign manager called. Each night, she still went back to the shelter, but her mind was busy. She no longer stared at ceilings, wondering why life was unfair. Now she was building. She kept screenshots, notes, receipts, everything she needed. Because one day she'd face Mr. Grant again, not with anger, not with tears, but with silence and power. He was still thriving. She saw his smug face on business articles, still gloating about integrity, still winning awards for diversity and innovation, still treating people like pawns. But his time would come, and when it did, she'd be ready. By the time spring came around, Priya was no longer that broken girl hiding behind coffee cups in a diner. She still kept quiet. She still moved like a ghost, never drawing attention, but her steps had purpose now. Her mind had sharpened, and slowly, she was planting seeds no one knew existed. The man who had given her a chance, Mr. Daniels, turned out to be a respected name in political branding. With each project Priya handled, his trust in her grew. She never asked for credit. She didn't want the spotlight. She just wanted results. And she delivered, again and again. What no one knew was that Priya was building something of her own on the side. Under a pseudonym, she launched a small consulting agency. No photo, no name, just the tagline. We fix what others break. Clients didn't care who was behind it. They just cared that sales doubled, campaigns went viral, and investors paid attention. One by one, she built a network. Developers, copywriters, strategists, all freelancers like her, all overlooked by the big names. She gave them contracts, fair pay, and full creative freedom. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't public, but it was growing and it was making money. Meanwhile, Grant & Locke, the company that had humiliated her, remained blissfully unaware. Mr. Grant still appeared on magazine covers, flashing that same smug grin. He spoke on panels about empowering young women in business, and Priya had to laugh. He hadn't even remembered her name when he fired her, but she remembered his. Every syllable. One day, while reviewing a proposal from a major cosmetics brand, Priya paused. She recognized the signature. The brand's current agency was Grant & Locke. Interesting. She waited 3 days, then sent a tailored pitch through her pseudonym. Not undercutting, but outperforming. She used the same language the brand loved, predicted the next quarter's trends, and proved it with data. Within a week, she got a reply. They wanted a meeting. Virtually, of course. No cameras, just ideas. She delivered, and just like that, the brand jumped ship. Quietly. No press, no fanfare. just a signed contract. It wasn't personal, at least not on paper, but Priya knew what it meant. Grant and Locke had lost one of their flagship clients. The cracks had begun to show. Months passed. She poached another, then two, then a tech startup whose founder had always been wary of Mr. Grant's ego. One by one, she was pulling the rug out from under him, and he didn't even know who was doing it, but he noticed something. "Why are we bleeding clients?" He barked at his assistant during a Monday meeting. "They're saying our strategy feels outdated or too aggressive. Some aren't saying anything. They're just gone. Who's taking them?" She handed him a file, his brow furrowed. As he read the name Veritas Consulting, "Never heard of them," he muttered. "Who runs it? No one knows. There's no team listed, no founder, but everyone's raving about their results." He tossed the folder aside, find out who's behind it, and shut them down. But it was too late for that. The agency had already become a quiet storm in the industry. Investors started whispering about it. Media blogs speculated. And one night, over a glass of whiskey, Mr. Grant confessed to his VP, "Something's off. It's like someone's coming for us." They were. Priya wasn't just building a business anymore. She was building a legacy, and the world was starting to notice. At a charity gala, she stood quietly by the bar in a sleek black dress, listening as executives praised the mysterious new player taking over the market. "I heard they're ex-CIA." One man laughed. "Nah, it's some tech prodigy who used to work for Apple," another replied. She sipped her drink and smiled. Let them guess. Across the ballroom, Mr. Grant arrived fashionably late. He shook hands, posed for pictures, made a toast. He looked powerful, but for the first time in years, Priya didn't feel small in his presence. He still didn't recognize her, and that was fine, because the storm hadn't hit yet. Not fully, but it was coming. Grant and Locke's headquarters, once the symbol of dominance, prestige, and power, now buzzed with uncertainty. The receptionists whispered behind polished desks. Senior partners walked with unease. Clients weren't calling back. Campaigns were failing, and rumors of layoffs were spreading like wildfire. Something was crumbling, but no one knew exactly what, except Priya. She knew every crack because she was the one carving them. And now, it was time. The final blow came not with fury, but precision. A conglomerate, one of the biggest in tech, released a press statement. They were dropping Grant and Locke, effective immediately. The account worth tens of millions would be handled by a new player in the industry, Veritas Consulting. The name hit the industry like lightning. Media outlets scrambled. Who was Veritas? Where did they come from? How had they managed to dethrone the kings of marketing without a single public appearance? Mr. Grant sat in his office, watching the headlines roll in. He was pale, shaking. The room around him was quiet, too quiet. Even the usual click of keyboards and soft footsteps in the hallway seemed to have disappeared. His empire was hollow now, and he knew it. He reached for the phone and dialed his assistant. "Get me a meeting with whoever's running Veritas. I don't care what it takes." 3 days later, a response came. A private meeting. No lawyers, no boardrooms, just him and her. The conference room was dimly lit when he walked in. A glass of water sat waiting at the head of the table. He adjusted his cufflinks, tried to hide the sweat under his collar, and forced a smile. When the door opened, he stood to greet his mystery rival, and then his face went white. Priya stepped into the room like she owned it. Calm, graceful, powerful, no fury in her eyes, just clarity, just peace. "You," he breathed. "You worked for me. You were the assistant. What was your name again?" "Priya," she said softly, taking a seat across from him. "I didn't expect you to remember." He blinked, still trying to process what he was seeing. The girl he had humiliated. The one he called diversity decoration. The one he told to get him coffee in front of a room full of men. She wasn't a ghost anymore. She was the storm. You started Veritas?" he asked, voice cracking. She tilted her head slightly. "Every empire starts somewhere, doesn't it?" He swallowed hard. "Listen, we got off on the wrong foot. That was years ago. I didn't mean, look, I had pressure. The board was—" "No need to explain," she said, cutting him off. "I'm not here for an apology." He exhaled in relief. "Good, because maybe we can work something out. A partnership even. Combine forces." She chuckled lightly. "You don't have forces left to combine." He flinched. She leaned forward, not with aggression but with finality. "Your best clients are gone. Your reputation is cracked, and your partners, half of them have already approached me privately. You burned too many bridges, Mr. Grant. I can change," he said quickly. "We can fix this. You and I, together. I can pay you double what you're making now." Priya stood slowly, smoothing her coat. "I didn't come here for money. I came to see your face when you realized you underestimated the wrong person." He stood too, a bit too fast. "You think this is over? You think people won't forget this in a month? I built this city." She gave him a quiet smile. "And I built something better. in silence, while you laughed. Priya, goodbye, Mr. Grant. She walked to the door, paused, and turned back one last time. Oh, she said casually. One more thing. You might want to check your lease. His brow furrowed. I bought the building last week. He stared at her, stunned. So, if you're still here by Friday, she added, you'll be trespassing. Then she left, heels clicking softly on the marble floor, each step the sound of power reclaimed. Back at Veritas HQ, a sunlit office built with empathy, equity, and quiet ambition, Priya returned to her desk. Her team smiled at her. No one asked what happened at the meeting. They didn't have to, because the headlines the next morning told the whole story. Industry titan Grant and Locke faces collapse as anonymous rival takes over. The comments beneath the article were full of speculation, admiration, and something else, satisfaction. Karma didn't come with flames, it came with silence, with grace, with strategy. And Priya, she didn't just win. She rewrote the rules. It happened quietly, just the way Priya had planned it. No drama, no scandal, just slow, suffocating collapse. Grant and Locke officially announced its closure after 72 years in business. The headlines were merciless. Once the industry's crown jewel, now a ghost ship of unpaid invoices and fleeing clients. Former employees shared horror stories on anonymous forums. Investors pulled out. And the press, once eager to praise Mr. Grant's so-called genius, now dissected every mistake he had made with brutal precision. The final nail was poetic. The very building he had once lorded over, the sleek downtown skyscraper where he'd barked orders and belittled people, was no longer his sanctuary. The deed belonged to Veritas Holdings now, and with it came the decision to evict the remaining traces of his failed empire. On the final day, Mr. Grant arrived at the lobby, hoping, somehow, that this was all a nightmare. His once pristine suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. The receptionist, once obedient and nervous, didn't even make eye contact. I'm here to see the board, he muttered. They're not expecting you, she said without looking up. I own this company, he snapped. Not anymore, came a calm voice. Behind him, he turned. Priya stood there, clipboard in hand, flanked by 2 uniformed security guards. She looked radiant, not just polished, but peaceful. She had nothing to prove anymore. No anger, no hatred, just closure. You, Grant started, his voice cracking. Mr. Grant, she said, stepping closer. As of 9 a.m., you are no longer authorized to be on these premises. He looked stunned, helpless. You can't do this. I already did. He stumbled, desperate now. Listen, I've lost everything. My wife left. My partners abandoned me. I've got nothing left. Please, you don't understand. Priya's eyes softened for a moment. Then she exhaled. I do understand, she said. I remember how it feels to have no one in your corner. You made sure I learned that lesson well. Please, he whispered. Let me stay. I built this place. She looked at the dusty walls, the cracked legacy. No, she said gently. You built something cruel. I'm building something better. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. The silence between them was thick, final. She held out her hand. In it, a single item. His old employee badge, scraped and bent. Full circle, she said softly. Then she dropped it on the floor. Security, she nodded. Please escort this man out. The guards moved without hesitation. Grant didn't fight. He simply followed, shoulders slumped, past the same marble pillars where he once walked like a king. Now, just another man who flew too close to his ego. Outside, the city kept moving. No one stopped to notice his exit. The world had moved on. Upstairs, Priya returned to her office. Her team greeted her with quiet pride. She placed the old badge in a small glass case on a shelf, not out of spite, but as a reminder of how far she'd come, of what she'd endured, and of what happens when karma is patient and precise. Have you ever seen karma come full circle in real life? Maybe someone who wronged you ended up facing the exact pain they once caused. Or maybe you watched someone rise from rock bottom, while those who mocked them crumbled. Stories like this happen more often than we think, and they hit differently when they're real. If this story reminded you of something personal, don't hold back. Share it in the comments. Let's talk about those moments when life serves justice in the most unexpected, satisfying way. Your story might inspire someone who's still waiting for their turn.